Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Grafton Select Board meeting, December 7th, 2021 at 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First up, for everyone, if I could please have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Next up is just have a few announcements. So due to a recent vacancy, the town is seeking interested residents to serve on the Finance Committee. Finance Committee is also we're looking for interested residents to fill member-at-large position on a newly created Fire Search Committee. Letters should be submitted to the Select Board office by noon on Friday, December 10th. Shop Grafton is underway. This is your chance to win one of 10 $100 gift cards to local businesses. Shop Grafton cards are available at the Town Administrator's office or at any of the participating retailers. Once you have shopped at 10 different retailers between November 1st and December 24th, hand in your card and you'll be entered into the raffle. Watch the town's social media page for updates. The Town of Grafton's financial transparency portal is officially live, powered by ClearGov. This software allows residents to take an in-depth look at the town's revenues, expenditures, demographics, and debt. These data sets can be refined down to the department level so that residents can see exactly where their tax dollars go. And that is all I have for announcements. And do we have anyone from the public wishing to address the Select Board tonight? Anyone from the Zoom meeting?
Nope.
All right, so first up, we have John Allen from Shop Grafton, who's our Economic Development Coordinator. John, are you here?
We do not have John on Zoom.
Okay, why don't we table that and we'll come back to him when he's ready. Next up, I have Colonel Booth from Haze Cannabis, who's here to talk about what he's seeking the board. You can have a seat. You don't have to stand. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please do. And welcome. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How's everyone doing?
Great. Thank you for making it out tonight.
Good. So I've recently purchased the plaza at 135 Westboro Road, previously owned by the Resonate Company. I will be opening a dispensary in that space. I've acquired their license, and I also have additional space in the plaza, and I'm looking to do product manufacturing. So ultimately, I would like to start the process of securing a host community agreement for product manufacturing in one of the units in that exact building.
All right, great. Does any of the board members have any questions for Colonel Booth?
So their existing host community agreement for sales,
Correct.
you say you've acquired that.
Correct, yes.
How does that usually work though? Do we have any part in that? We have to rewrite that, or did that already happen? Or?
Yeah, generally speaking, when you acquire a license, you negotiate another host community agreement with the town.
Okay.
It's a successor agreement, essentially.
Okay.
And so we can, depending on the board's pleasure, we can negotiate that as well.
Yep. I'd be willing. Yeah, I'm doing whatever is necessary so
Yeah.
we can
Understood.
open the store in a few months as well as create our own products.
Gotcha.
So it's not like a liquor license, you can actually sell that?
So the license from the CCC, yes, is sellable. There's a difference of opinion on host community agreements. We went through this when we were doing the Nature's Remedy Jushi conversation,
right.
which is it a transfer or is it a new agreement? We found that, essentially at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you call it. It's the same. It creates a new agreement between Haze and the town.
Correct.
As opposed to
Right.
Resonate in the town. So, if the board chooses to move forward with a community agreement or delegate it to me to negotiate the HCA's, then we would just probably take the bones of that and move it over.
Yes, exactly. Same terms and everything. Right.
And the previous HC at that location did not have manufacturing; it was just for sales.
I believe so. I think it was sales only.
Correct.
Okay.
And what's the status of that? Do we have to go through the same thing we went through with Jushi, or should we, where we make
Yeah.
sure that is terminated?
Yeah. So what just for your edification. So in the past, what we did is we terminated the HCA with Resonate, or we would with Resonate, and then you would have the new one and plus whatever else you're seeking to do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be perfect. Yeah.
Do you have any other locations in Massachusetts that are open?
So I am part of a company called Holistic Health Group, and we are vertically integrated medical marijuana company. So we cultivate indoors and outdoors, and we are just opening our retail dispensary. But we're medical vertical. So
So-
we're out in Middleborough.
Will this be a medical dispensary?
No, this will be adult use, yeah. It will be eventually medical, but right now, the state requires a full vertical for medical, and at some point, they're gonna split the licenses up, and I will then just have medical retail there at some point, with the adult use retail.
Okay.
So you're currently manufacturing now,
I'm currently cultivating now,
cultivating, that's what I'm, sorry,
Yes.
that's what I meant. So indoors and,
indoors and outdoors.
what size facility do you have?
The building is 34,000 square feet, and so we have a 20,000 square foot indoor license, and we have a 40,000 square foot outdoor license.
And what will you be seeking? You said earlier, just so the public is aware, that you would be seeking a manufacturing license for 135 Westboro Road, but you're going to do this all indoors. There's nothing that's going to occur.
Yeah, this isn't cultivation. This is just essentially we're going to be creating edibles, and we call them holistic healing products. So it'll be like transdermal patches, shea butters, things of that nature. But it's some will be edibles and some will be like for skin usage.
Okay.
But there'll be no cultivating in the building.
Okay.
And when do you hope to be open?
So we're hoping to open a store in hopefully March, maybe April at the latest. We plan on getting the construction finished by early March. Then we have to get our certificate of occupancy, and then CCC has to do the final inspections, and then we can open. So we hope to get on the April agenda.
I'm assuming you're
Great.
fixing the floors over there, right?
Everything. Yeah, the building is down to the studs right now. It was in a very poor condition.
Yes, it was,
Yes.
it was.
Yeah.
It's an old building. All right. Any other questions?
Are you familiar that we only have 3 slots available in town and one has been filled and it's kind of a race to the finish line? Has that been explained to you at all?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe there's another facility in construction, middle of town. Yeah. Mhm.
All right, any other questions from the board? So I guess at this point, just take a straw poll for the board. Is everyone in agreement to just have Evan negotiate a new community host agreement with Colonel Booth and Haze Cannabis? Is there any objections to that? Is that what the board wants to do to move forward?
That's fine with me.
Fine, me too.
We don't have to take an official motion on that. You'll go ahead and propose that, put that paperwork together, and once that's all finalized and it goes through our process here at the town, we'll get it on that next agenda for us to review and take action on.
Okay. Will that be in January, I'm assuming, sometime?
I think it's going to be dependent on when everything can be finalized and completed.
Yeah.
So we have meetings scheduled for the 14th, and we have a tentative meeting scheduled for the 21st.
Oh, okay.
Then we don't meet again until the 4th
Okay, yeah, that works for
of
me.
January. Sorry.
Yeah. I would think January is a reasonable timeline
Yeah.
to try to meet.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
You have any questions for us?
No, I'm just, I'm finally got to meet everybody, and I look forward to the opportunity, to be successful in town. We are hiring obviously locally wherever possible. We're trying to get local contractors as well, and we just want to be a good corporate citizen. Essentially that's our goal. So
Excellent.
Well, we look forward to the opening.
thank you.
Yeah,
We
Sure.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
For Evan, as you're in our negotiations, I think we've learned a lot. We want to put ourselves in a situation where we have some type of sunset at some point if things just don't progress as we would expect.
Yep. And I have standard language developed for that you and I'll discuss.
Okay.
They're pretty reasonable terms. You come before the board once a year, give an update, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's fine. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else? Thank you, Colonel, very much.
Thank you very
for
much.
coming
yeah,
in.
thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good to meet you.
Nice
Good
to
night.
meet you.
All right. Okay, do we have John Allen back?
We don't.
No.
I reached out to him.
Might
Okay.
also-
You know what?
Share
We'll come back to that. All right, we'll go on to retirement and resignations for Grafton Police Department.
Sure.
So we have official action here to take tonight for Officer Collette.
I move the board vote to acknowledge and accept the retirement of Officer Robert Collette, effective December 3rd, 2021.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
And send him a letter of thank you for his
Yep.
34.
years.
34 years. And the police did have a send-off for him last Friday and an escort from the Semlac Motorcycle Division, so that was really nice.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks, Bobby.
Yeah, thank you.
Which Officer Collette? very well in his retirement, and thank you for all of your years of service. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Declare the motion carried unanimous. All right, next up, we have Grafton Police Department K-9 Zeta retirement. And then we have a follow-up, action item to take. Is there any questions before we go into this? If there's no questions, I could entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to acknowledge and accept the retirement notice for K-9 Officer Zeta.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you.
So do we send her like a milk bone instead of a letter of thanks? How does that work?
I was going to say something like that, and
The milk bone.
Then you decided it was too corny and kept it inside.
But I went for it. I went right for it.
I did. Yeah.
And then
Colleen
you
knows
get
my
Colleen.
sense of humor. And I appreciate that. Okay, next up here, what do we have here? Sale of animal canine, and waiver liability agreement.
Are we not doing David Sullivan?
You know what? I can do that next. That was added
I'm just trying to go.
at the, I know, yep. It's not on our.
No, well, it,
It is. Oh, go
on the
ahead,
one
I'll
that
take
was
it.
sent
Yep,
out.
go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead.
What am I?
All right, so we have Officer David Sullivan, who's submitted his letter of intent to retire December 16th. So I move the board vote to acknowledge and accept the retirement of Officer David W. Sullivan effective December 16th, 2021.
second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion?
He's my neighbor and he's wonderful.
Well, again, I wish you, Mr. Sullivan, all the best in your retirement. Thank you for all your years of service to the town of Grafton and working 30 years in law enforcement. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much for that. That was my bad. Next up here, we have to take some action tonight on sale of K-9 and waiver of liability agreement. Anyone have any questions on what action we need to take here tonight?
I just want to explain for the public that might not be looking at the agenda. The sale is for $1, and it's a transaction that just moves liability from the town to the owner. It's not like I don't want people to think we're selling it's like
A
making
dog.
making money off
Yeah.
of a dog. We're
And he's staying with the officer that he's
with the handler.
been
Yeah,
with, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And this is how you do that in a municipality.
Great. All right, any other questions? Thank you, Evan.
Yes.
All right, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to approve the sale of an animal and waiver of liability agreement between the town of Grafton and Joseph Coggins, and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, declare the motion carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, next up we have election worker, Bernadette Warwick.
I move the board vote to acknowledge and accept the resignation of Bernadette Warwick as an election worker effective immediately and send her notice of thanks.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Motion carried unanimous. Next up, we have Recreation Commission resignation.
I move the board vote to acknowledge and accept the resignation of Christine Bishop as a member of the Recreation Commission effective immediately and send her a letter of thanks.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimous. All right. Moving on here, I still don't think we have John Allen yet, so why don't we move on to appointment select board. So, based on the meeting we had, last meeting we had in November, board voted to adopt the charge and membership for new fire chief search committee. So tonight, we need to choose 2 select board delegates for the fire search committee.
I would like to volunteer.
I would like to volunteer also.
Anybody else have any discussion on this? Anyone else want to volunteer? Can't have 3 of you, but we can only have 2. All right, so we have 2 select board members. We have Colleen Roy and Ray Mead. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So I nominate Colleen to the Fire Chief Search Committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to nominate Colleen Roy. Any discussion on the motion? Good luck. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, declare the motion carried unanimous. Do we have a motion for Mr. Mead?
So I want to talk about this one.
Okay.
I have some concerns, right? Frankly.
Tell me what they are.
Well, I have a couple of concerns. One, I think, well, for the public, this is us making sausage. We got some specific commentary back from the assessment center, which were talking about the way that the board dealt with the interviews, and I have some concerns about that. And specifically, they, were talking about the quality of the interviews and the way that things were portrayed, I guess, in our interview process. And there was some commentary about micromanaging and the relationship with the board that would eventually develop, and I guess I need to address those concerns, thinking about who needs to be on the search committee. Because I'm not 100% convinced that you're the right person.
Okay. So I'll tell you this, and I know that people have gotten phone calls, and I know that those interviews did not go well, and I will say that the interviews did not go well, and the process didn't go well from day one. I spent 32 years on the Grafton Fire Department. I spent 16 years of those 32 years as the fire prevention officer in the school department, in the schools. I trained with the Worcester Fire Department numerous times. I've trained with other departments. I have interviewed and hired hundreds of people. And that's my background. I am still involved in the Grafton Fire Department, and I help wherever I can. So I believe that process, that original process, rolled off the rails, and a few of us, not just me, a few of us rolled off those rails with it. I was appointed to the Fire Safety Committee, a Fire Study Committee. I was appointed chairman of that Fire Study Committee. And Peter will back me up on this. The first thing I said at the first meeting was, we need to discuss the future and not discuss the past. That's my goal. So I believe I have more than enough experience in interview, in hiring, in negotiating, and in firefighting that I should be on this committee. I don't know what else to say.
Can I just add one more thing? And the other concern, while we're talking about concerns, because I just want to bring it up to the entire board, is I've received feedback that you may be a little too close to the process. There's absolutely no doubt you're not qualified to be the person. But my intention is also to make sure that we continue this partnership and collaboration with the fire department. And if I'm hearing from people from within the fire department that they would rather not have you serve with the committee, that's a concern. You and I address that. But I'm just throwing it out there to see if that's a concern for anyone else. I think Matt's concerns are definitely valid. I think that you would bring a lot to the committee, and I've told you this too, in terms of knowledge of the fire department. You are the person on this board, like without a doubt. But there are also, we want to make sure that the process that we go through this time is done in a fashion that is collaborative with the fire department. And I just want to make sure that we can do that for the the betterment of the town. It's not a personal thing. So I just want to throw that in there too, and
Right.
just get other people's opinions on that. If this board feels comfortable with this appointment, then I'm for it. But I want to make sure that we're making the best decision, because this is game time. Like we're we're out. You know, we're out of. I don't know what sports analogy to use. We're out of batters. We're out of players. We're out of like
You know, this is it.
this
Maybe
is
maybe
it.
what's a different analogy?
Yeah.
You know, we
yeah.
have to get this right.
Yeah.
So,
So I just want to have the conversation so we're all comfortable with our appointments here.
so Matt, you just said something. We have to get this right. And you don't think I can do that.
Right. Look, you said you didn't think that our last process went well.
No, there was a lot of things that didn't go well. The process, the main process itself went well. It was all the little side deals and the little things that were on the outside that didn't go well. And I'll say it, the executive session information that came out of the committee that went to the public. That didn't go. That was bad.
That could happen again.
I don't
I
think
mean,
that's going to
we
change.
can't control
Right.
that. Yeah.
That is not going to change. And my concern is that what you're saying is we need to look to the future,
Right.
but I don't feel like that's what you're doing.
Then vote no. That's all.
Any other questions?
Let's get it over with.
Well, we need 2 delegates, so is anybody
Well, we
else
need
interested
somebody
in
else
serving?
though, 'cause so I'm,
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. If
I'm
nobody
not raising
else-
my hand to do this, but
So I'm not raising my hand to do this either. However, I would be willing to sit on the committee again in terms of, I think between Evan and I, we know what worked and what didn't work. So it might be efficient for someone who is on the other search committee to be on the search committee with you and a new person who has new insight, new input. That's an option. But I also don't want to dismiss Ray in this conversation.
I don't
You
either.
know,
Look,
Yeah.
All I can say is, if you're gonna make a decision based on phone calls that you've received, then you make that decision.
No, I
If
went.
that decision's not in the best interest of the town, then that's all on you guys. If you don't want me, just say it. Just say it.
Well, I guess, I mean, Peter, are you interested in serving? Because,
I'll withdraw.
well, it's nobody's,
Nope,
there's
I'll
no,
withdraw.
there's, but there's no, that's what I was about to get at. Nobody else wants to volunteer.
Right.
We have somebody volunteering. I guess the reservations were heard, and we can just hope that it is received and will be acted upon accordingly. That's the best we can do.
I mean, look, these are not easy conversations to have. I've been in this situation before in another board and committee, and I get it. But this is what we have to do. We have to discuss this. If Ray withdraws and there's no one else, then as chair, I'll step up to the plate and be the second delegate. But I would really prefer if someone else wants to step up, if Ray's said he's withdrawing.
Yeah, no, I'm withdrawing. I'm not,
Well, look,
really not gonna.
are these
this-
just my concerns?
This is.
Because
this
if
is,
they are, then I'll withdraw the concerns, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too. It's like,
And the other, I guess, comment that I want to make is, I regardless of whether you're on the committee or not, I think we have to talk about this as a board. Like, there was clearly an impression that was given during our interviews that wasn't good. So,
I'll agree with that, and I'll
and
say,
I don't want to be in a situation where, so if we
And that was
decide,
all on me, Matt?
no, not
Well,
not
then,
at all.
wait a minute. See, you're making a statement that there were impressions given, and then you have concerns about me. So it is all about me.
It isn't. I think we need to address that as a board, how we change the impression that we give in the interviews. But I think that also, goes down to the search committee. How do we, as a board, give confidence in the fire department, like give the impression that we're going to have a good relationship with the next fire chief. That's really important. This was a key piece of data feedback that we got as a board that we have to react to. We can't just sort of let it go by. I'm sorry, but that to me was like, it was a kind of a smack in the head of you guys didn't.
Do
I-
X, Y, and Z.
I don't know,
And this
you-
is, yeah,
So for me, when I got that feedback, what I am going to be really adamant about is when we submit our questions to Evan and he gives us our script, we stick to the script. There's going to be zero improvisation. Like, we're going to read the same question to whatever candidates we get. And that's to ensure that we have the same interview throughout. And that didn't happen, and that is something we absolutely can control as a board, and I'm going to insist that we do.
That's fair. Again, we're talking about the future and about how do we correct that perception of, what the feedback was from the candidates to us through the consultant.
Peter, you were on the fire study committee. How did that go?
It was a long process, right?
How did it go?
The meetings went well. We didn't talk about the past, like you said. We talked about the future because we all agreed that bringing up anything in the past wasn't beneficial. But that was for the fire study committee. Right, it went well.
And did we come up with a good plan?
We came up with a plan. Yeah. And we even had some in-depth discussions about it. I thought we handled ourselves pretty well. They were open meetings, by the way, so those weren't in the executive session. Those were open to the public, and there were meeting minutes submitted and so on and so forth. So, again, it's the will of the board. If, Ray, you're withdrawing and we need a person,
Yeah,
then
no, I'm withdrawing.
I will step up at this point. I'm just asking, like, how much more do we have to do on ARPA?
A considerable amount.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You can get a cot and sleep in the office with me.
I gotta tell you
At this
something.
point, I'll.
I gotta tell you, if I had feelings, they'd be hurt. But I don't. So,
Alright.
I'll just leave it at that.
You do have feelings, Ray, and I
Let's move this on.
Leave it alone.
Let's, I'll volunteer as tribute. Someone wants to nominate me, we'll vote on it.
all right. I will nominate Peter to the fire search committee.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Declare the motion carried. Unanimous. All right, so next up, we have Public Safety Dispatcher, Fire Department Office Manager. I'm jumping all over the place today.
Yep, so this one is my appointment and your confirmation. We have appointed Janine Grabeau as the office manager for the Grafton Fire Department. And Janine started on the 29th, I believe. Because you haven't met within the 15-day window.
Anyone have any questions? All right, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to affirm the town administrator's appointment of Janine Grabeau as the office manager for the Grafton Fire Department.
second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. So next up, we have Public Safety Dispatcher.
Yep, so this is effective yesterday, actually, but this is Jennifer Bellevue, and we are appointing her to the position of full-time public safety dispatcher.
All right, any questions on the appointment? Hearing none, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to affirm the town administrator's appointment of Jennifer Bellevue as a full-time public safety dispatcher for the Grafton Police Department.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Declare the motion carried. All those opposed? No one. I declare the motion carried. All right, new business. Supporting legislation. Residents against crumbling concrete.
Yep, so our representative is not on the call, which is concerning as well, but I can certainly take it. I have a certain level of knowledge of the issue. So if you don't mind, I'll just give you the overview?
Can I ask a quick question? Is anybody in this
Yes.
audience? Oh, okay.
Yes,
so
we
the
know
link
it's
is
working.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've checked that several times once.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It looks like either something happened with our panelist thing, or we just have two people that forgot the meeting, or I don't know. We'll have to figure that out after.
Sounds good. Okay.
That's future Will's problem. Okay.
Sure is.
So, moving through the Senate right now is a bill, S-548, and it's an act relative to crumbling foundations. I believe that the public hearing process opens in January on this particular bill. And so what this act deals with is a substance called pyrrhotite. And so pyrrhotite, when found in nature, is a benign rock. However, when mixed with concrete, it makes the concrete unstable. So over time, pyrrhotite in concrete being exposed to water and oxygen makes the concrete fail. And so I got involved with the pyrrhotite issue. There was a concrete company called JJ Modis. They came out of Stafford, Connecticut. Their quarry was one that had a high amount of pyrrhotite, and it was put into homes all over central Massachusetts. And so what winds up happening is that at first the homes are fine, but then you get to year 15, 20, 30, somewhere in there, and you start getting horizontal cracking and spiderweb cracking, which is different than, a lot of houses settle, you might get a vertical crack or a short vertical crack. That's usually a differential settling crack. These are either horizontal or spiderweb looking, and what happens is you can actually go up and put your hand right through the foundation. And so, if we were dealing with one or two houses, it's really not a public concern, right? It winds up being the buyer beware type of situation. However, we're talking about thousands of homes that are potentially affected by this. And this was a problem we saw in Connecticut, and thousands of homes were affected, and they created what's called a captive insurance company that took fees from building permits or some other permitting process, basically took a little fee, put it to the side, and used that to fund replacement of foundations. And what they do is they come in and they jack the house, rip the old foundation out, pour a new foundation, or sometimes they use modular walls, or however they choose to do it depending on the project, and refoundation the home. So there's a representative, her name is Michelle Iglesi. She's been really beating the drum on this, and she got the state about 2 years ago to offer coverage for testing. And the testing is great, but the testing is also limited, because if you're going to sell your home, you don't want to have it tested. Because if they find pyrrhotite, how are you going to sell that house? And if you're a new home buyer, you don't want to have it tested, because if they find pyrrhotite, you can't mortgage that house, right? There's a lot of different things, and there's no set amount of pyrrhotite that makes the concrete unstable, because you've got to have certain water conditions. It's impossible to know, is 5% bad, is 2% bad, depends on where your house is built. So anyways, long story short, they're pushing forward with a different approach to get people a funding mechanism to help replace the foundations on the homes that are found to have problems, so that you actually are resolving the issue instead of passing the buck through buyer to buyer to buyer to buyer. There's a number of homes, mostly in the western part of Hampden County, that have already been jacked up. I mean, $1 million homes in Long Meadow, Mass, and things like that. But we are aware of 2 houses in Grafton that have crumbling foundation. Might not have come out of that quarry, but that's the thing with pyrrhotite. It could be one vein that gets hit when they're making aggregate, and then you've got a couple houses here, a couple houses there. And the reason it's important to support this, in my opinion, is that if you start getting hundreds of houses in a county that are no longer taxable, it'll really kill your municipal infrastructure, which, regardless of whether they're 10 miles from here or 50 miles from here, is going to ripple out throughout state the state budget process. So what they're asking Grafton to do is vote to send a letter to the Joint Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture in support of S548, an act relative to Crumbling Foundation. So if the board would like to support that legislation, we would be happy to draft a letter to that effect.
All right, any questions for Evan?
The residents in Grafton that have been identified, are they, since this hasn't passed yet, what happens to residents if they go and they go look in their basement tonight, right?
So what? Yes. So there is assistance for testing. So if somebody goes and they think they have this problem, it's through Trinity College. But if you search, I think it's Massachusetts Residents Against Crumbling Concrete, you'll get a link to some resources. They can also contact me. I have a lot of contacts still in this, and actually, that's where I met Craig Dolphinet. He sat on the Governor's Commission on this, and we hosted them in my previous position. So we can definitely hook people up with resources if they think they have an issue. What I've found is that people won't tell you because they're concerned about what that means in the long run. So the best thing that you can do, and we saw this in Connecticut, is get either a captive up and running or some kind of funding mechanism to help people with the cost. And then they'll come forward and say, yes, my house has a problem, and how do we fix it?
All right. Any other questions for Evan? No. All right, so you're looking for a motion tonight, or you want to draft a letter and then we'll take the motion?
If you could just take motion and maybe authorize me to sign it, I'll just write it and send it. It's a pretty straightforward letter.
Sounds good.
All right, I'll entertain a motion if someone wants to.
All right, I move the board vote to approve supporting the legislation as presented by the town administrator, Evan Browson.
Second.
Motion made in second. Any discussion on the motion? Just make sure you CC us on the letter when it goes out. Yeah, sure. Okay. Any
got it.
further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Thank you, Evan. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, so next up on our agenda under new business, we have national opioid litigation. We have a couple of action items to consider tonight. If the board has any questions, or Evan, if you want to give just an overview of what's in front of us tonight.
Sure. So there's two major suits moving through the courts right now, and the town of Grafton has the opportunity to sign on to that those suits. One is in regards to, oops, I just lost my place, to Jansen, and the other one, is the distributor settlement participation form. So it's basically the state is suing these companies for their role in the opioid crisis, and communities have the opportunity to sign on and be a recipient of anything that comes out of that case. There's very little downside to, if there is any, to signing on to a case like this, and I think a lot of our sister communities have already engaged in this process. So I would recommend that we move forward.
All right.
Is there something specific if we did receive money that we'd want to put it towards to help?
Yeah, I would think that if we received some kind of settlement, that we should earmark that and use it for substance abuse. However we
Public
decide
health,
to do that,
yeah.
whether
Some
that's
kind of-
supporting some kind of NA group or outreach through the senior center for people that are having, there's a lot of different ways we could parse that. What you see in big settlements like this is it's rarely big dollars, but I think we could use it for a good impact.
Okay. Perfect.
So there's two forms here tonight we need motions on. Are we authorizing the chair to sign these?
I believe that would be the most, let's see. Yep, we're looking for a chair signature, please.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion on the subdivision distributor settlement participation form? I believe the first one here.
If you're okay, I have a single motion.
Okay, that works for me.
I move the board vote to approve the subdivision distributor settlement participation form and the subdivision Jansen settlement participation forms and authorize the chair to sign those agreements.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Good, motion carried unanimous. All right, thank you. Moving on to select board reports. Does anyone have anything to report? I know it's been a while.
Just one thing, and Evan will probably cover this too, but the library will have its ribbon cutting ceremony on December 17th at 11 a.m.
Nice.
So the board should be getting an invitation if you haven't already. And I will be there. Peter, I think you will be there as well.
Yes.
I'll be there.
Great. So whoever wants to attend from our group, it'd be great.
Looking
That's all I
forward
have.
to it.
Yeah.
Any other reports? Just let you know, the ARPA committee will be meeting next Monday. We'll be reviewing consultants to assist with the administrative component of the government funding, federal funding, in response to COVID-19, and part of the infrastructure. No, just the ARPA money, correct, for this one?
Just the ARPA.
Just ARPA money, yeah. So we'll be discussing that next Monday at 7 p.m. and reviewing those contracts. That's all I
Great.
have. Okay, TA reports.
All right, I have just a few things. One, I wanted to update the board on your goals. So we will be meeting with the department heads tomorrow morning to review those goals and come up with our share of the response to how we're going to get your goals accomplished. So we'll start doing that tomorrow at 10 a.m. And that should be good. I wanted to talk about ClearGov real quick. If people are looking at that software, we are building it literally every day. More stuff goes up. I have finished the fiscal 22 capital plan. The department heads are working on the fiscal 23 capital plan. And I have been, just today I was playing around. I'm now able to upload status reports on all the capital items that then get tied to a project page. So you'll be able to go on and look at all the projects. There's only one, so don't rush out. Took me like 2 hours to figure it out today, but now I know how to do it, and it's going to be super quick. Half of it was getting the picture from my phone into the computer. It was a whole thing. So it just wouldn't go. It was all wonky. So anyways, it's a really cool tool, and I think it's going to really give the public a great vantage point of here's what you funded at town meeting. Here's where the money goes. Here's the projects. Here's where the projects are in stages. It's a really neat tool.
Now that you guys are getting comfortable with this and building it every day, is it spawning inspiration to do our own website over again? And
Yeah, so Will has been meeting, or is in the process of meeting with different website vendors.
Spoke to one of them today.
Spoke to one of them today.
great,
So
all good things, cheap, you're just gonna get it done?
Yes, sort of, yes. In that order.
Alright,
so we're working on it.
okay.
But yes, that is definitely something that'll be coming down the pike. So that leads me to 60 Depot Street. That was one of the things that we had tagged that came down last Friday. So that was a pretty interesting process to see roll out. And I think that the neighbors are very happy to see that property be cleared up. And then lastly, just want to thank Cindy Hyde for picking up a lot of the select board's needs, as well as my own, and really stepping up to the plate and getting it done. I know she's really inundated with things, and doing, I think, a great job on the agenda and everything else that goes along with it. So I really appreciate her picking up the slack, and I think we're going to start interviewing for the other admin position hopefully next week. So I think that is all that I have.
All right, any questions for Evan?
Town clerk, are we gonna talk about that at all?
I can. So if people recall, sorry.
That's a bad thing to say to elected members, but go
No,
ahead though.
the police chief in Munson, that was his catchphrase and used to drive me nuts. And now I say it to him whenever I talk to him. So if you recall, as the board may recall, we voted, or no, you voted at the last town meeting to change the clerks, to put onto the election, onto the ballot, to change the clerk from elected to appointed. And so that was a result of a town meeting vote that was ruled as a majority. However, it should have been ruled as a 2/3 vote. And luckily for us, the moderator, Don Anderson, did a hand count regardless, and actually had data on the count totals. And the reason I say lucky for us is that if you had the votes to pass, we would have had the data to do it. Where I've seen in other instances when it's supposed to be a 2/3 and it gets called as a majority, they just call it a majority and you don't have any data to support. The bad side is that the vote did not have a 2/3 majority and therefore did not pass. So that will not be going to the ballot, and the board will have to make a choice at its next town meeting whether or not to pursue that again.
So because a majority of people did want to see it go to the ballot and was under the impression that's all it was going to take, and until tonight probably assumed it would be on the ballot, is that something that we should consider putting on the special if we have a special? And would that give it enough time to make it to this ballot still?
I believe it would give it enough time to make it to the ballot. I think the question of whether you should put it on or not is a board question and not a town administrator question.
Right, okay. So I guess can we just make that an agenda item in the future to have a deeper discussion on that, or?
I think once we need to figure out if we're gonna have the special town meeting first, but I think if that's the case and we're moving forward, then yeah, we should definitely, I would like to see it on our agenda, if the rest of the board would like to revisit it, if we can have a special town meeting in the next few months.
If for a process standpoint, generally speaking, you discuss warrant articles when you open the warrant, so that might be a natural thing. So if the board wants to, if we indeed wind up having a special sometime over the winter, the meeting in which you open the warrant would be a natural time to put that on and discuss whether or not to actually put it on the warrant or not, in my opinion.
Because if we don't have a special town meeting,
Then you're talking about it in December and not dealing with it until May.
right.
Agreed.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Next up, we had a number of correspondence come through the town. Does anyone have any questions?
The Leland Hill correspondence, did somebody get back to that person?
Give me 1 second. I don't recall what that is about.
They were kind of upset about some landscaping.
Yes, I can get you what the resolve was, but that was forwarded off to.
I just want to make sure somebody responded, that's,
Yep.
okay,
I don't have specifics because it didn't come back to me.
okay.
But I can find out.
Any other questions or comments?
I have just one thing regarding correspondence, just because I'm scrolling through and there's a ton of smell.
Creeper Hill, I was gonna ask, but
So we were notified today that the test yesterday on Creeper Hill did not go well, and that the company will not be doing any further testing of soy and okra for the foreseeable future. And so now they have to go through their final inspection process. Their mid-inspection process, then there's testing, then there's the final inspection. So they're going to go through with final inspection on the products that they know are not causing these problems, but they will not be doing the things that have been causing that egregious smell. And I do want people to know that that was a combination of our Board of Health as well as the DEP. They were on site at all the tests post the first real bad incident. So every single time they fired up the equipment, our staff were on site to monitor and shut it down when it was clear that it wasn't working. So there's a number of things that we're working on with the folks at Feedback Earth, and so we will continue to push out that information when it becomes available, if they're doing any other testing or going into full operation or whatever that is.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
thank you.
So I'm hearing
as of today, they will not be cooking any more okra or soy products that were the root cause of the noxious fumes from that area of town.
Correct.
And the other products that they're cooking, has there been any determination, or if they could have been a part of?
It's my understanding that the days in which they tested other material, we did not have the same issues.
Who did the test one more time? Who conducted these tests?
So the folks at Feedback Earth are running the test.
Yeah.
We have our staff and DEP air quality folks on site monitoring the test to ensure that, well, it's not going well, turn it off, essentially. So, and I do know that the DEP folks and our local folks were not just on site. They were moving throughout the town to try to ensure that it's not, oh, it doesn't smell here, but if you go a quarter mile away, it stinks. You know, they I think they did a good job, and you know, figured out that it's not working right. So they need to go back to the drawing board on that. And the science is pretty in depth, and I don't have a good enough knowledge of that. I just know that their deodorizing program is not working.
Understood. Thank you.
So I mean, that final test could result in one more event, just because it's like clearing out.
Yeah, we have no timeline on that though, so it could be, you know, 3 months from now they start trying something else or whatever. But we're in constant communication. It's not like they're just up there doing their thing. DEP and the locals are in constant communication, and we'll be on site next time they decide to try something.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on correspondence? Is there anything else in the correspondence anyone wants to bring up? Okay, next up here we have discussion. So something that came to me when we were doing agenda planning with Cindy was about appointment of constables, and I raised the question, what's this all about? Oh my God, I've never seen this before. And so I had Evan just kind of provide us with some background information, like what is this all about? Like what are we doing here? So Evan, do you want to just maybe give a summary of just sort of the history here a bit, and speaking with Ginny on this? And
Yep. So Cindy kind of ran point on this because she is a constable and has some pretty in-depth knowledge about this. So this is a little different. These, traditionally, we have appointed local constables that are either Town of Grafton employees or Grafton police officers to execute the duties of a constable, as well as post our town meeting and those type of duties. What you see from time to time is folks from either other states or other towns that are doing a different role of a constable. So they will come here and serve papers for lawsuits and warrant type of things. Grafton has not engaged in those type of services. You know, they can still be carried out by the sheriff or whoever. But from time to time, you do see folks from other states that are trying to come here and be constables to do things for a fee. That's basically what it comes down to. So you have basically 4 options, if I can move into that. So you can approve the appointment of 3 additional constables and cap the number at 10. And then consider the 3. You can cap it at 10 and then consider the 3 applications at a future meeting. You can pass over the appointment of additional constables and send a letter stating that. You can take no action ever. There's nothing that compels the board to actually take action on this matter. Or you can approve limitations such as the number of constables and location requirements. I think that if you were going to do limitations and location requirements, we'd have to do that at a future. You'd have to do that at a future meeting. I think we'd have to figure out.
so what I was asked tonight is to bring this in front of us and discuss, like, what would the board like to do with this situation? Again, this is the first time we've seen in umpteen years about appointing constables, but I thought it was good just to get some background for us, and just want to open the discussion up and see what people would like to do.
Well, currently, if you go on our town website, it says that we have 2 vacancies for constables, so that could have been what prompted the sudden interest. So I think the final option of putting limitations and locations in place at a future meeting makes the most sense, because it just kind of ties up the problem neatly, and we don't have to deal with it again.
Anyone else?
Well, I don't think we should be appointing constables from New Hampshire. If
I
there's
agree.
if there's someone from Grafton who wants to be a constable, and we're gonna limit the amount of constables we're putting out there, how do we take care of them?
Right.
People from New Hampshire? No.
The other option I think is you can in theory not put a limit, but put just a location.
Well, currently, we do have a limit, right? We say there's 2 vacancies, so the
No,
limit's
what I
9,
meant
right?
was, well, you don't have to restrict the limit even further, you can just put in place a
A
location requirement.
Yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense. Yep.
But if we have this on a future agenda, we could do both.
You could have that
Yeah.
debate
Discussion,
all
yeah.
day, yeah.
Yeah, I think we should bring that at a future agenda item where we're making plans to put a location requirement in at the very least.
I agree, just so this isn't dealt with again
Yeah.
any other time.
Everyone okay on board with that? I do have one thing I wanted to add. And, personally, have we had a problem with getting constables to conduct business in Grafton? I mean, I haven't heard of anything. No one's told me there's a constable drought. And I would really like to see us, even taking it further, and I would like the board to consider maybe putting a limit in the number and a location on there.
Yes.
I don't need people from the Cape or Western Mass either, right? Coming up here and, doing this where, other people have opportunities. So, I don't know how the board feels about that. But I mean, we don't have to limit it to 10. We could,
Sorry, Will's from the Cape and I'm from Western Mass. We're taking that
You're out.
personally.
Yeah.
Not happening.
Take
Wow.
it in.
Those
But-
are the only 2 examples you
But
could come
you're
up with.
employees, so then you're in. You're back in.
Be hitting the old dusty trail there, I think, Evan.
pardon me for the faux pas. So I think we could consider that, in addition to the location. But my question to Evan, and this probably has to go back for review, is can we limit it to 5? Can we limit it to 6? I mean,
Currently have 7, so.
but can we limit it? That's what I'm
I
saying.
believe you can limit it to whatever you want.
So it's just a number that there's no rule that says you have to have a minimum per population or any of those
Not
things?
that I've seen when we were looking at the legislation.
Okay.
I will double check that before you have that conversation, but I didn't come across it anywhere.
Okay.
I'd like to see some number, probably consistent. I mean, what are consistent with other towns have we seen? I mean, has other communities run into this? And
Yeah, I'm sure we can take a look and see if we can find other towns what they might have for limits that have done this.
Yeah.
We can reach out to our peer group.
just for my own benefit, it doesn't mean we have to copy another community saying word for word or anything like that. I just would like to know.
This was the first major screw up I had when I got hired by Munson.
You appointed constables?
I brought a constable in and didn't ask any questions, and then when they asked why you want to be a constable, he asked to turn off all of the cameras, and he'll explain it. It's
Yikes.
very awkward.
That is awkward.
Wow.
Lesson learned.
I was gonna say that interview must have ended short. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and this could affect some of our current constables when we add a location.
Okay.
So,
I think we'll have to look at that. You could do it by radius. You could do it. There's a lot of different ways I think we can do it.
Mhm.
That's what we will look at is both other limits, other location, or other number limits, other location limits, as well as our current makeup and their locations.
but like if you're an employee, does that supersede the location, right?
And that might be what you do.
Yeah.
You make it,
Okay.
Grafton employees or residents of the town of Grafton.
Yeah.
Something simple as that. So if you want to
Yep.
make, some schmo from the Cape a constable, you can do that because he's an employee.
'Cause
I
it's
think we've
employee.
already said no on the Cape and Western Mass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so as long as we know before the meeting what our boundaries are, we'll be
Yeah.
good.
We
I
will,
think that'll be an easy conversation.
we'll drill down on it.
Okay.
So for tonight, do we want to pass over?
I think so.
Yeah, just have it come back.
Yeah, these were things to consider when I put that out there, and I probably should move the board to vote. That was on me, but just kind of went back to some consistent language that I usually put on agendas. So I would agree that we just pass over any action on this tonight and bring it forth at the next meeting.
Good.
Okay.
And okay, nope, I'm on the same page. I got it.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, moving up next for discussion, the requests by Ray about emails that myself, Chair, sent to the fire department regarding our November 9th, 2021 meeting with the department. Ray, did you want to
Yeah,
address?
there were 7 questions sent out to department head, and all I want is that the board review any questions or anything. If it says it's coming from this board, I just want it reviewed and approved by this board, and that's it.
Is that every email to any department head?
If we're sending questions for someone to answer, and it says the board is asking these questions, then I want it to come from the board, or at least have it sent to the board and say, are you okay with these questions? That's all.
Okay.
Leave it alone.
Any questions or what's the board think?
You can't send it to the board and ask, are you okay with these questions?
I agree. That
Yeah.
would be a
Open meeting law
little open
violation.
meeting law violation, I agree. But I just want to know what's the rest of the board feel.
I just have a question. So weren't those our questions that you sent, Peter?
You know, I went back and watched the meeting, and, you know, these were myself who was charged with organizing a meeting with the fire department, taking an outline of the board's discussion. These weren't all my questions. These were Colleen's, these were yours, these were some of the comments that we all made. And I, for whatever, you know, took a summative approach. I didn't write anything word for word, but one of the things I wanted to make sure was, here's a general, outline of what we discussed. Interim chief, inside, outside, existing with approved extensions, officers working as collaborative chief, new chief search committee membership makeup. These were things that we all openly discussed on several of our meetings. My point here with sending this out was to make sure that the department was aware of, here were the highlights of the meeting, but here's the video of the meeting that I sent, and I gave, explicit detail to, the chief to distribute to his command staff, his officers that we invited, about, whereabouts in the meeting that we started discussing, so they too could review to make sure that they heard precisely what each one of us did. So, I mean, I would agree with you, Ray, that, if I'm, oh my God, I'm sending a question to, I don't know, Mary Laurie over at the finance office. I'm saying, I'm sending this on behalf of the select board, but we didn't have a discussion. I think that's a bridge too far. Like, that would be, like, really? Like, what are you doing? We should talk about that. But my intent here was simply to prepare a department for a meeting with the board after we had 3 separate discussions as the result of the hiring process. But Ray, I would agree with you on any question to any department head, or taking any unilateral action on ourselves on behalf of the board. I think it should be discussed in the meeting prior to that. And I felt that I did exactly that on all 3 of these meetings, where I disclosed to the board, I'm going to put these notes together and I'm going to send this off to the department. I'm going to put these notes together. I'm going to send these off to the department. And then 3rd meeting we had discussion, I said the exact same thing. So I didn't hear any objections. So that was my intent of this email. If any of the board members felt that this was going a bit too far, I would hope that you would think me sending the video links and the times of the meetings was adequate to say, please watch this for yourself to make sure I didn't misinterpret anything. And that's that. Anything else? All right, let's move on to sanitation curbside collection. Bag fees and municipal solid waste costs.
I got it all here. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So let's dive in. Everyone's favorite conversation. So, Mr. Chair, can just run with it. Yes. Okay.
Yes, please. Would you like me to go over the sanitation budget?
No, I just making sure. I didn't want to just.
Okay.
I didn't know if there was something else you wanted to throw in there.
I would
before
trash it if I did.
That's a good one.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, so the kind of high level discussion here. We had sent out a policy or a memo, basically informing the board of a number of different metrics that we're using to look at the sanitation budget, and some areas of concern that we've uncovered. I would like to thank Cindy for putting together the background numbers and Will for putting together the presentation and the white paper that you received already.
Thank you both.
And I'd like to thank me for coming up with all of the
Your,
ideas
your
and just
name's the only
delegating
one
it.
on there,
Alright.
though. I don't see anyone else's name. Take
It
all
actually
of
says William Blake for EPB in the bottom.
Oh, and the tiny letters.
Yep.
At the bottom.
Yeah.
That's William.
Yep.
Where's the 4?
William Adrian Blake, prepared for Evan Riffard.
Oh, that's what that means?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
And I'm in caps, which
I
means
see
I'm
that,
the most
yeah.
important, right?
Okay.
Okay, just to clarify that.
But I have the fourth middle initial.
Focus.
Sorry. It's been a day here at the
Sanitation
municipal center.
budget.
Okay, so from 2014, fiscal 2014 to fiscal 21, the sanitation budget increased by 15.8%, which is a growth from about 860,000 to about 995,000. However, in the fiscal year 22, the budget jumped to about $1.23 million, which is a 25% increase year from 21 to 22, which is a 42.8% increase from fiscal 14. Now, it's important to note that a lot of that is driven by the collapse of the recycling market and the commodities market. So what used to net Grafton a positive revenue, or at the very least neutral revenue, is now a cost. And that's why you see that significant jump. In that same time period, from fiscal 2014 to fiscal 21, bag fees only increased 12.8%. And if we stay at the current fee structure, the portion of the sanitation budget covered by the bag fees will be down to about 34%. Now, historically, I'm going to jump around a little bit, so I don't know what slide you want to go to. Maybe, let's go to the next slide. Over that same time
So
period,
before you move on though, so we had a 15.8% increase in the budget up until FY 22. We had a 12.8% increase in bag fees. That's a little behind, but it's not terrible. We were kind of keeping pace until basically until this fiscal year, it sounds like.
yep, there were some corrective actions in that swing that
Yep.
kept us where we need to be. So you'll see some years where we're a little ahead of, say, 50%, if that's the metric we're trying to hit, and some years where we dip down, and then you can see we took corrective action and brought the bag fees back. But what we're seeing now is
But if you were to look at that line, if you were to sort of draw a straight line, it would be, maybe it would dip a little bit, but basically almost straight across.
I think if you include this year, then no.
And we also signed a new contract this year.
Yeah, so this is, I guess my point is that, like, historically we were keeping up. This year's an aberration in terms of, like, the cost increase.
Yes, but I think what you're going to see in this contract and future contracts, it's not a trend line that is slightly inclined. It's going to be a J curve,
Okay.
and I think that's the problem. And so you would have been better served to recognize that the market was in collapse under China Sword or National Sword, and adjust your bag fees to try to create a trend that was going to be revenue positive in order to stay ahead of the certain calamity that was going to come at your next contract renewal.
Okay.
I think things like that were tossed out there, and where it was just, we'll just eliminate trash. Those were, statements that were just said, but with no real follow up or,
No-
like you said,
no action.
forethought to say, let's avoid this.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know.
I sure.
Historically, like our bag piece, since we instituted the bag piece, was to only subsidize a portion of the town's tax revenue contribution towards waste and recycling. But what I'm hearing and what you had mentioned is that bag fees are not gonna keep up with the actual rate to kind of keep it proportional to what the community is used to enjoy,
Right.
enjoy.
And so what you're finding, what we're seeing right now is an ever-growing delta between revenue of bag sales
Yep.
and cost of disposal. Which bottom line, when we'll get to this in the end, is for a town that's continuing to have conversations about where the revenue is going and the inability to keep up with demand for services, losing more taxpayer revenue to an enterprise service is probably not the direction you want to head. So let's run down and then we'll, if that's okay. In the same time, the cost of manufacturing has increased, and it has increased dramatically in the past fiscal year, as brought on by COVID and production shortages, mostly in what do they call it? Plastics. No, that's not the word I was looking for. There's another word that's specific to trash bags. But, and so what we're seeing is a dramatic increase in the cost of the bag, and therefore an even bigger spread of your delta. Because now, not only are we not taking in more money for a bigger contract, but we're also not making as much money on the bags to then offset the cost of trash. And I guess I should take one step back for any resident that's watching that is wondering why this matters. So trash is, in Grafton, trash is an enterprise fund. And so you take revenue from the bag sales to offset the cost of the entire sanitation budget, so that it's not solely on the taxpayer to fund that. And what happens is if you fall behind, more and more of your tax base goes towards sanitation, which is also inherently unfair for the people that do not pay for trash collection. So condos, apartments, all of those things that have an aggregate trash system built into them.
They don't use it, but they pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Got a couple people real riled up in my office just this week. Explain that, because I don't think a lot of people understand that that's what we're talking about. So just some more graphs on that. You want to keep going down? So we've also seen increased tipping and hauling fees. So hauling fees are going to grow over time. But tipping fees are a little bit outside of what we negotiate the hauler contract. We negotiate a tipping contract for Wheelabrator. Both of those have seen some pretty large increases. This graph doesn't really show us our projection, but our projection is obviously higher than what we had for fiscal year 21.
What's our current tipping fee?
Our current tipping fee. You have that in there?
I don't have it in this slide deck, but when I stop sharing my screen, I can pull it up and I can give you
Great.
that
Yeah.
information.
We can give you that actual number.
I'm just interested because that's a 20-year contract, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
So here's a little bit of data that I think is important. So in fiscal 21, we saw a total sanitation budget of $994,000, and we brought in $431,000 in revenue. So that means we spent taxpayer portion of $562,000. Our projection for fiscal 22, you brought in, or you're bringing in $421,000, and the total contract is $1.23 million, which means that the delta has grown to $806,000, or an increase of roughly $250,000. So that means that whatever you raise in taxes, whatever your 2.5 and your new growth is, $250,000 of that comes right off the top to fund your trash fee, which is okay if that is what the board wishes to see happen. But in a climate where you've asked us to look for any of these drags on revenue, I think it's important to have the conversation. So currently, a small roll of a roll of small bags costs $5, and a roll of large bags costs $9. If you were to try to get back to a 50% coverage of your sanitation budget, you would have to raise the cost of small bags per roll to $7. I'm reading this correctly, right?
Yep.
And the large bag would have to go up to $12.60 per roll. And so, while not a popular conversation, it is probably worth noting that we need to take some action, even if you do not hit 50% in the next fiscal year. So you could do this incrementally. You could do this all at once on January 1. I do also want to note that we are halfway through that fiscal year, so we've already, seen some revenue loss already.
I have a bag question.
Yeah.
Who's our bag vendor?
Waste
Waste
Zero.
Zero? Okay. So there has been, for years, talk about the quality
Mhm.
of the bag. So one of my concerns, beyond how we make this increase, if we decide to make this increase as a board, is making an increase on a product that residents are not happy with at the current price.
Mhm.
How would you suggest we handle that?
We are happy to continue to look for other vendors. Waste Zero is, I would guess anecdotally, the largest supplier of bags in the Commonwealth to municipal programs. And the one of the troubles that I've had so far is I've had people that have moved from other communities that complain about our quality of bags, that tell me that, you should get the same bags as Northborough. Those are great. And when we call
They're
Northborough,
the same.
it's the exact same
Yeah.
bag.
Well, they're
No,
different color.
no difference. A little bit different color, yeah. Maybe we should just change the color.
The color.
But we can certainly spend some time looking for another municipal vendor, and see if we can get some sample bags and talk to communities that are served by those other vendors, and also look at price. We can do all of those things in conjunction with this conversation.
Is there a way to just move away from the bags altogether so that eliminates that cost and maybe sell like a trash pass for the year and do it that way?
So trash pass is difficult because you don't control tonnage. The point of pay as you throw is that the more waste you create, the more you pay. And so it's a direct impact. And one of the reasons that communities moved to this is that it shifted the burden away from, Mrs. Smith, who uses one bag a week, paying the same amount for hauling as the house next door that has 9 people in it. And so it becomes a direct proportionate impact. So the problem with like a pass is that it's a set fee. Doesn't matter what you're putting in there. There is an option to go to like a sticker. And we can certainly explore that as well. The sticker is the same thing. You pay, a seemingly exorbitant amount for a sticker, but the point is that that's covering your hauling fee. So you put a sticker on your generic bag, and that goes. Sometimes they're like
Yeah.
bands.
That's
almost.
gotta
Man.
cost less than the bags that people hate that they're spending.
That's an option. Yep, we can
Yeah.
certainly talk
Yeah.
and look at that.
But, those bags were designed to tear at a certain weight, right? They were designed to fail at a certain weight. When people put, 80 pounds of trash in those bags,
Right.
they were designed. I remember watching the meeting here when they were going
Yep,
over these bags.
yep.
They were designed to rip. I would like to see what a program looks like too. What Colleen had suggested, tag systems so people can pick their own bag.
But I want to also see, and I want to go down this road because I feel that this delta is only going to grow exponentially over time,
Right.
especially when it becomes more expensive to run fossil fuel vehicles on the road. Okay, I want to see what it would take to move to like a tidy town type of service. Like, what does that mean to residents? Because I look at it this way. Yeah, we call it an enterprise account, but it's an enterprise account that all taxpayer revenue subsidizes a losing program. And we know that the bag fees were only there to offset the costs for the subscribers of that program, but not 100% of the town can subscribe to that. Now, I will compare this to the wastewater treatment plant. 100% of the subscribers to the wastewater treatment plant pay for 100% of that outcome.
Right.
Not 1 ounce of tax revenue, I think maybe for the exception of I don't know, administrative dollars.
Nope.
No,
Not
it
even
doesn't.
that.
So the subscription, we're already doing that for people on sewer, and those people on septic, they don't pay for
Right.
the sewer fees. So the people in a condo complex or in multi-home dwellings, they're forced to have to get their own trash service, condo associations, and so on and so forth. They're forced, they can't participate into that program at all. But their tax revenue goes to offset that. And yet the bag fees, we hear complaining every time we raise them even 25 cents or something. The bag, we just hear the complaints. But again, I want to see what it would take for the town to be out of the trash business altogether.
But there's other impacts the town would face. I mean, right? Like, what if people don't get their own service and they start dumping them in, wherever they want to dump them? Now the town's responsible for cleaning that up.
And that was one of the issues that came up years ago when the Pay As You Throw program started, was even the stickers. People from other communities, because we're surrounded by Pay As You Throw communities, it's easier, when the trash hauler's coming through, he's not looking for every sticker. I mean, a lot of it now is mechanical, right? And so it's easy to hide other trash, which means, and that's why I'm asking about our tipping fee too, because if they're not able to regulate that, we could end up with a higher tipping fee, which could not, help this issue at all. One suggestion I want to make too is we have this new waste reduction and recycling committee that is formed, and I would really like to ask the board if we could also, I can put an agenda together in a meeting for them to take a look at this too, and maybe come up with ideas to not only see if there's other ways to reduce, but what their input would be. I mean, there's Kevin from DPW is on it. We've got some good people on the committee that might have some great insight to help us make some decisions.
Have you guys met yet?
Yeah, we've met.
Okay.
So the sticker or tag idea is definitely appealing to me from the
Yep.
standpoint that people are gonna complain about the cost no matter what. But at least they won't have the bags to complain about.
Yeah.
But also, then people are having to buy stickers or tags and bags.
Right.
So,
Right.
at least now people get actual bags that they put their trash in and they put it out and it's gone. So I don't know how that would work out.
I know in my house, I'm already buying 2
On a
sets
household?
of bags.
Yeah.
I can't imagine I'm the only house in Grafton doing that. So,
Like a bag within a bag.
yep.
Yeah.
So I think that is probably happening in a lot of households
Yep.
already. But if the stickers or tags cost a lot less, but we keep still charging the $7 or $9, that's going to help make up some more.
Sure. No,
Revenue to
I
offset
get
the
it.
cost there.
Like I said, it's that's an appealing option to me. Let's not annoy people by just the quality of the bags.
Right.
I'm not sure how much compensation we're going to have to make for the loss of, I guess, management of the guys who are actually picking up the trash and their control over, the bags that are tagged versus aren't.
Right.
Well, that's something the committee could look into, because I'm sure
Exactly.
other towns use bags or like stickers or tags.
Exactly.
How is that
And-
experience?
yeah. And is it successful? What issues did they run into? So we know up front. That would be a good study.
What's a
And
realistic time frame to get that information?
I would say we would probably meet the first week in January. I don't know if I can get a quorum together before the holidays. I could try.
Right, but you guys would meet, then you have to go research, so you'd probably get back to us February, March with it.
February,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. And
I would really like to see that committee also evaluate 100% privatize trash removal for residents. We
Yep.
need to be looking at
Yep.
all of it. We can't just say because that's whatever. We have to look
Yep.
at that because I
Okay.
do believe that, you know, as well as the tag system, I would agree with you guys. That, yeah, I would like to buy my own bags that fit my cans. Who doesn't, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, I also want to take responsibility as a resident, and I know I'm speaking for myself here, but just so people can hear me. Yeah, I'll pay for 100% of my waste removal because I know with my family I generate more than a typical household. But I do want to acknowledge that there are households in Grafton that contribute to subsidizing my trash removal. I think that's fair.
Right.
Right.
Well, and
Well, I think that this, you know, this is one of these things that it's kind of like when people say, what are you gonna do to lower our taxes? Well, I'm not gonna do anything, because taxes are never gonna go down. Taxes are always gonna go up. This $12.60 at this $7 next year is gonna be even higher. My concern is, so it costs, if you do one bag a week of the big bag, it's $604.80. My concern is, how many people in this town can't afford that? And can we put together a program so that people who can't afford these bags can buy discounted bags and still throw out their rubbish?
we have that in place.
It's in place already?
Yep, it's already in place. It has been since day one with pay as you throw.
Well, it should be advertised then, because I'm not aware of it, and not at all. And that would be, I mean, this is gonna go up, we have to do this.
Yeah.
But-
Right, and the people who can't afford trash bags certainly aren't gonna be able to afford having privatized trash removal,
No.
which that's gonna lead to dumping issues.
Exactly.
So when we do
Correct.
figure out the cost of that, which I'm not against for sure, I wanna hear all the options. I just wanna hear the negative downside beyond cost with that. Is that what cost impact is the town gonna have now that DPW guys are running around picking up trash everywhere instead of doing what they wanna be doing? You know?
I mean, you could always go to a transfer station, which would be a direct access to Wheelabrator, from town to Wheelabrator. But then you have to build a transfer station, and then you have to employ people to run that transfer station, and you have to buy trucks to transfer that stuff. So it's a, you know, it's a catch-22 kind of thing.
So lots of stuff to figure out.
Yeah.
What kind of action do you need from us tonight? Because none of those answers are going to come quickly, and I imagine you need action quickly.
No, yeah.
So
I have one more question before you answer, if you don't mind. So, you spoke about this. I mean, obviously the recycling market has changed too. So when Pay As You Throw was initiated, it was also to help increase recycling, right? So it's like, okay, if you're paying for your trash and it's recyclable, you put it in your free, quote unquote, free recycling bin.
Right.
And you can fill up as many of those as you want, and then you'll use less trash.
Right.
So now we're at a place where the recycling is just as, if not probably more expensive. And I don't know if we have a breakdown from that from Harvey. And it sounds like we
do.
need to completely revamp our recycling, and dare I say, maybe eliminate recycling. I don't know what that looks like. That seems to be a major cost, because that's the driver of the increase. A lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's also an increase in tonnage and an increase in, you know,
Okay.
everything
Yeah,
going up.
yeah.
As a person, I say, you know, we should be recycling because that's the responsible thing to do.
Right. But
For-
where's
for-
our recycling going?
Right. Well, right now it's not going anywhere good.
a
No.
lot of time it's hopeful recycling where people aren't even doing it properly. So that's
Right. And we have Wheelabrator, which is burnable for energy. So if we're talking about doing the right thing, that's
Well, currently.
currently.
So, you know, it's our hope, I would say, that the Commonwealth figures out what they should have figured out 20 years ago and put in place the infrastructure they said they were going to put in place to be able to deal with this locally. I think they're supposed to have 5 MRFs up and running, and they only have 1 that was state controlled. And so, you know, hopefully we figure out our infrastructure problem, and then recycling finds a market and goes back down. But I don't think, you know, that what is that, 10 years from now? I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So The other consideration is to look at this program. You're already in a 3-year contract, right? This was the model that we chose. Doesn't mean that we can't go back to Harvey and renegotiate and do all of that stuff. But I think that in the current climate, you need to look at the system that you have. I would recommend that you adjust the fees accordingly to properly fund that program and simultaneously head down the road of, are we doing tape closures, or,
Stickers or
they do twist ties
privatized, yeah.
too. You know, there's a number of different options we can look at. But I mean, I can't imagine that you're gonna implement any change before July 1 of next year. It's just realistically. not
Beyond
gonna
Yeah.
bag fees.
happen.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
be,
That's fair.
no, even with bag fees, I would suggest, and nobody's gonna wanna hear this, but I would suggest your bag fee changes January 1. Cause with that delta that I'm talking about at 250,000,
It grows.
at July 1, you're already at $1.25 down.
Okay, and to that end, and to Ray's point, I would want to see, the board years ago put a policy in place for low income, and we may want to adjust that if we raise bag
Absolutely.
fees. And just, and as population grows in town, I think that's a policy we should be.
I do also have, and I'm not finding it right now, a comparison to the other communities around us that do pay as you throw and what their bag fee cost is. Do you have that at your fingertips?
Not on hand.
I'm having
That's
trouble looking.
I do have the number you were looking for,
Okay,
Mr. Fabio,
the
if you
tipping
want it.
fee? Sure.
Yeah, so in September, we paid $24,353 in tipping,
Okay.
and in hauling, we paid $54,464.
Okay.
So you believe it was a policy of the board and that had the discounted?
It was.
It was, but it's
So
back
as-
in 2009.
We
It was,
start going back to bringing policies back. Can that be one that we review maybe even next week if you can track it down?
Yeah.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah, if I can get my hands on it,
Yeah,
we
it-
can
it goes-
prioritize that tomorrow
it-
or.
The answer is in theory. Yes.
But I heard yes, so
I heard yes too.
thank you.
That's
it-
Will's rookie mistake.
So
I
the Council on Aging is the one that
Yeah, we'll
distributes that, so.
Yep, we will talk to,
Great.
we will reach out to Barb and we'll get all of our information that we need so that you have it for next
'Cause I
week.
would like to see policies coming back on the agendas again. And that's a
Neat,
great
like that one.
segue. Thank you.
Fantastic.
All right, so we have to make a decision now about bag fees.
Or you don't have to make it tonight. You can cogitate on it and bring it back for next week or even the week after. Or end of January. I mean,
It doesn't sound like we have any other options.
It does not sound like we have any other options.
Let's just bring it back next week. We'll put it on, new business, and we'll take it up and put what's the recommendation that we want to see? Is it the 40% one that's highlighted in yellow? Is it 95% or is it 153%?
Will, can you put that back up on the screen, do you mind?
I can.
Thank you.
Well, I don't think it's palatable to ask people to jump from $9 to 17 or 22. So the only one I would even be considering would be the $9 to 12 and the $5 to 7. But that's me personally. I think the other ones are just
there's a third option that I I don't think I mentioned. You can have a goal of getting yourself to 50% and go, 20% increase January 1, 20% increase July 1 to catch yourselves up. But it costs us money to
But
do
that puts you more.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that if the board is concerned with that level of jump, you could do some kind of continuum, but.
if we're gonna put this off and not take action on it tonight, can we invite the public in to, I mean, not maybe have a public hearing, but just put it out there. Say, hey, we're talking about this. If you have an opinion, and everybody does, come in and tell us about it so that we can, maybe think of something we haven't thought of yet. But it sounds like this is kind of the only way we have to go. So let's hear from everybody before we do it. And, I don't know how to do that
More
pretty
want to go down that road?
I don't know how that's gonna.
You just got to get.
I mean, we're gonna hear from people
Sure,
anyway, so you might
absolutely.
as well let's just do it real quick and then.
I think it's a publicly posted meeting.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure that
true.
it's going to be picked up that this is what we're discussing. So
Yep.
if people feel passionately about it, they can send us correspondence or come to the meeting.
And they will.
This will be the
Okay.
only thing they talk about.
So we're talking about a 40% increase in the cost
Yeah, which is $2.
to cover, to make, to
And
get us up to that 50% coverage of
Yep.
the budget.
Yep.
Yeah. So for me, I'm not comfortable voting on that tonight.
Right.
But thank you for the information. I get it, and I think the board should do something soon, but not necessarily tonight, because I don't want to make the problem worse than it is, I guess,
I don't think,
for this fiscal year.
well, doing nothing would make it worse. So we definitely have to do something.
Yep.
Bring it to next week, okay? We'll look at the three options here. Obviously, people are kind of weighing in on one thing versus another.
Yeah.
This will just be the agenda item, okay? And we can table that piece because everyone agree that we need to take some sort of responsible action because town can't sustain it. It can't sustain it going forward.
Right, and William, myself, and Cindy will work on clarifying some of the questions that you all have,
Okay.
have asked.
How quickly could we transition to stickers or tags though? We don't even know that.
Well, I can't give the top of mind because I don't know how many. We are buying bags in advance, so you also don't want to just abandon the
We
program.
have a
Right.
contract.
You
with
know, you
Zero,
wanna
yeah.
you wanna use up as much of your supply as possible, and there's other considerations, which is
Outreach and education.
well that and having a conversation with the hauler because now we're changing the structure of our contract. We have to have a conversation with DEP as our we have grants that are tied to our program and all the rest of it. So we need to. I mean, it's
and
a
Wheelabrator, if they'll accept it.
yeah. So it's a
Yeah.
broader conversation. I think we can adequately within the next week find a lot of this data. We're not going to have the whole framework of here's your new model of collection. But I think we can make a pretty good dent in it to give you some insight into you're sending us into a direction to get you more finite information.
Could we invite the Waste Reduction and Recycling Committee in next week to our meeting? Or at least,
If I were to make a recommendation, I would say no,
okay,
because they won't have any time to have openly discussed that in a public meeting and come up
Sure.
with a
Yeah, they don't,
direction from that board as a whole.
fair enough.
They would have to meet this week.
Yep.
Fair enough.
You don't even have enough
What's-
information to what Colleen was even mentioned, like how long would it take to switch the program from bags to tags?
Right.
What's a MRF? You said,
Municipal recycling facility.
and you at one point mentioned that the state would have idealistically had five at
Five.
this point.
Yep.
There's only one.
Right. They
Is that
privatized
something
other ones.
We want to bring to Grafton and try to get a deal here? No. Okay. Is that the problem? Nobody wants one, and that's why we don't have them?
It's part of it, but it's not all of it.
Okay.
I got a whole rant if you want to hear it.
We'll save that
Another
for
time.
the next one.
If you ever want to go to a great conference, go to the Municipal Solid Waste Conference that happens in Framingham. Very eye-opening
Solid.
conference. It really is. It's one of my favorite ones to go to. You learn a lot.
all right, so we'll bring this back. Will we have enough information for the 14th?
Yeah, we'll get on it pretty hard.
Okay,
here.
all right.
Thank you.
We'll put a spot in the agenda for next week on that and make sure we have our information so we can make a decision. All right, why don't we move on to annual license renewal list? So before our next meeting, this is just an opportunity for the board to go over a list of licenses that we typically do on an annual basis. So if there's any licenses that the board wants to question, we could discuss those by the list you received. If we need to pull anything out to get more information, this is the time to do it because next week I would really like to bring this list back and have us approve the ones that we don't have any questions. And if there's any questions, we can deal with those however the board sees fit.
I want to mention I did receive one question from a board member about this, and it's about process. And so the question is generically, are people? This isn't just a rubber stamp list, essentially. And so the process is Cindy in October sends out a letter that to these businesses says it's time to renew. They update all their information and return that form, and that's how we update our information. So it is current every year. It's not just they've been doing it for 20 years, so we just keep doing it. It is refreshed information.
Any questions, any comments from the board? I just have one, just double check the name, under common victualier's license. for-
Victualator?
Thank you. For, John Henry Tavern. Was it that one, or was it the, alcohol license? It just says John Henry McGill, John H. McGill listed as the holder of that license.
Okay,
Just
we will
make sure
double
that that's
check.
accurate before it comes back to us.
Yep, we brought them with us.
Yeehaw.
You know, I think it's just something that they just need to amend.
Well, or they're a DBA, because we run into that a lot too.
Okay.
So we'll double check that and we'll let the board know before you adjourn.
Go quicker.
You know, that makes me so excited that they're all here. I'm such a nerd.
We prepped, mainly because we're scared of not having the answers or telling you the
Yep.
wrong answer and then having Cindy yell at us tomorrow. So we're gonna make sure we do this.
I mean, we could follow up. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
we got it right
need
here.
to
Well,
be-
if you want to move on, we'll have it before the end of the meeting.
Yeah, let's move on. So we'll come back to that while, you're looking that up. So, tri-committee, school committee, finance committee, select board meeting, I, reached out to the chairs of the other committee meetings just to see if there was any interest from them, if they wanted to meet for the coming fiscal year, fiscal budget. There was some consideration and interest in doing so, so I wanted to ask the board what its interest is, but more importantly, a while back, we decided that going forward that we would have more of a subcommittee with the three boards kind of represented, instead of putting 19 of us in a room. So I was reminded that we would discuss, this is going back last year, that we would appoint 2 select board representatives going forward, but something we didn't do back in our appointment process back in June. So I wanted to ask the board what it would like to do going forward. This is a new board, obviously, so just wanted to kind of put that out there. And
Does this subcommittee require a charge, and it's a sub of which committee? Us, school, or finance?
it is TRICOM, it is for finance, school committee. And
No, I
select board.
understand who's on it, but if it's a sub, is it the select board subcommittee? Is it the finance subcommittee? You know what I mean? And who would be responsible, and do they need a charge?
I don't know if they need a charge. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Okay.
It's
I don't. You know. I don't know what the rest of the board feels.
It's simply to be able to have the 3 committees meet
Mhm.
with representatives and then take back anything that they need that would need a formal vote to their respective boards. But just so that you don't have to try to roll call 19 people or take comment from 19 people in one thing. So you would designate whatever the number is, if it's 2 from each board or whatever it is, they can have their TRICOM committee meeting and bring back anything that needs to be brought back.
So it's not really a subcommittee. It's still a TRICOM committee with delegates. That's really what it is.
Yeah, it's like a representative government.
Okay.
So I didn't know what the board wants to do. Wants to consider delegating 2 members? Come on, who wants to jump up and do this?
I mean, I think that's more efficient to do delegates than try to have full TRICOM meetings.
Gonna go from 19 to 6, yeah.
Right?
Get a lot more done. Get a lot more done.
I think you can.
That's for sure.
So
How often do you think this committee is going to meet? Like, we had like maybe 2 TRICOMs a year. Is that what they're possibly gonna do? I just want to know before I throw my hat in the ring. You know what I mean?
Colleen, I don't know. I think it's up to the members to determine
I-
if there's a reason to meet.
I would think you're looking at a minimum of quarterly,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
Okay.
In an outlier year, you would meet more than that, but I think that's your minimum obligation would be quarterly. And I say that because you've got 2 town meetings generally, and then there's gonna be 2 meetings, which we're gonna talk about in the future, in which we're gonna do transfers in a different way than we've done in the past, which is gonna require TRICOM.
what kind of transfers?
Financial transfers.
I see.
Some
I'm
streamline.
happy to put my hand up for this. I guess my only concern with this is that we did have a TRICOM, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, and it just kind of, they never met, they never really did anything.
It was
Oh, we did this, you mean, instead of,
No, we call it. It wasn't really a tri. It wasn't the tri. Yeah, we did do something like that, Matt.
We
used
had
to say
members from finance committee, school committee, and the select
We
board.
call it the school
And-
budget subcommittee, which consisted of, and it was just about the school budget in general. That's what it was all about. This is more broad because it's really anything that touches the three boards. I'm not saying school board's gonna get into the weeds of our.
Right.
I guess my point is I want to make sure that if I'm signing up for this, it's clear what the expectation is that this group is going to do.
which a charge would
Hence the
provide.
charge, yeah.
And if it sounds like we've done this before, similar anyway,
It feels like we need some chart, whatever you want to call it. It just can't be this open-ended group of delegates that meet here and there to do something.
Right.
I don't know.
So can we have a charge put together and
Yeah, I'm pretty
table
sure the
this for a
charter.
week?
Pretty sure the charter lays out what TRICOM does. So,
No, it doesn't.
but it did.
No, charter does not have any reference to the tri-committees.
Does-
It talks about what committees' roles are, and points out administrative functions and what the boards do, but the charter or the bylaws does not talk about three boards acting in unison like this. This was something that was created back in 2014 when the town went through the first override as a way for the boards to all be on the same page because people were hearing different things from different people and people were coming to meetings with their version of the correct information, which obviously skewed a lot of people's thoughts and stuff.
Okay.
So it's primarily a budget subcommittee. That's what I'm hearing.
We have the old charge for that somewhere. If you can ask Jay if he knows where it is, I could email him.
I bet. I'm
that
sure.
one was based for school, so.
I know, but there's some structure in it that kind of talks about it.
So would you like us to find that and then bring that back?
I think that'd be good. That's what I'm hearing the board wants to do.
I don't know if I'd bring that back. I just
Make a new one?
I think.
No,
that's-
not. I mean, bring the issue back with the framework that you're
charge.
looking.
yeah,
for.
but some just it doesn't even have to be a formal charge. I just would like to.
Know what you're signing up for?
I'm not quite understanding yet what the structure
So-
and the
Because we're
commitment is.
definitely be holding the bag if it's not met, so,
Right.
yeah.
Well, we've all met as tri-committee before. We kind of know what our roles were at those meetings. So I would assume it's pretty much, but I mean, it could be easy as putting together a couple of sentences saying, this is what you're doing.
Yeah, so historically, tri-committee has been basically right before an override, we get together and have a quick discussion.
Or- So you've done it twice since I've been here, both before the town meeting.
We've had tri-committee meetings in the middle between overrides. We talked about one year when we had healthcare costs exponential, but we needed to bring the three boards together, discuss why there was why the schools, for example, were getting 4.9 and not 5.5 as what was projected.
It's when the town is in crisis, in budget crisis. That's when tri-committee comes together. If it's different than that, I just want to know what it is.
Okay.
Before I sign up for it, that's all I'm saying.
I think we send the delegates and then they figure it out and then they create the charge.
Nah, I don't wanna sign up for something like
We'll,
that.
we'll put something together.
Colleen.
That's real risky.
No, I get it.
I just want to know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Matt. I'm
I
right
get
there
it.
with you.
So why don't we, if we have a draft of a charge or whatever we want to call it, so the people that we
And then do we
delegate
have
to
to
that.
send that to FinCom and school to see, if
I think I would assume FinCom and school.
they've already delegated?
I'm sure. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think they do this.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
they don't have a Colleen
They-
or a Matt.
They don't. We already got Colleening. Now we know what matting is.
Yes. No.
Well, if you can talk me through it so that I.
No, I don't know what it is clearly. So we will put that together.
I
We'll
think
bring
you
it
just
back.
need to jump off the cliff. That's what I think you should do. And you'll land eventually on something somewhere. Or so they say.
You say so.
So I nominate Peter Carlson and good luck to your jumping.
We'll put something more finite together for the board,
I mean,
and
I
we'll
wouldn't
bring that
mind
back.
doing it too, if people have some reservations.
Yep,
I
we will
know
do
it's
that.
gonna meet very infrequently, so it's fine.
Not if I get on.
We'll see. You've got other people to contend with, not just me. All right. So we'll bring something back, okay, at the next meeting. Next up, do we have the license information? We can go back to that real quick.
It is correct.
Okay, great. We'll bring that back on the 14th for the board to review, take action.
moving on to Fire Department Search Committee, selection process for fire department representatives. So just wanted to ask the committee, when do we want to bring them in? What's the process? Because I have was told the meeting back in March when you guys were discussing this, it was the select board was to choose the fire department rep.
Well, we've advertised it. And so I'm not sure how else it would go. Because people have already expressed interest.
Do we have a date when we want to do that?
Well, if all the applications are to be in by the 10th, I see no reason why we can't make appointments for this and the at-large member on the 14th.
Yeah, whatever the next meeting is.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
10th of this month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so next meeting.
So we're looking at the 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah. The stars and the moon line. Okay, then we'll do that. There's no questions on that. So we'll invite those interested members from the department in. All right, and last but not least, just wanted to put this out here, so just so we know to prepare for this. We put the meeting on the 21st as more of like an additional meeting. I know it's the week of the holiday, but I wanted to ask the board what its intention, if it wants to meet on the 21st, if we can try to get a lot of our work done on the 14th and we can be wrapped up. What's its thoughts?
I don't want to make that call until we get through the 14th personally, because we have a lot of balls in the air that might need wrapping up. You know, whether it's the trash or if we have to start talking about that special town meeting and all this other information that could flow in. I don't think the 21st needs to be a heavy meeting, but I do think keeping that flexibility until at least the 14th, you know, and have that conversation then to say, hey, do we really need to meet next week or not?
What's the rest of the board want to do?
Personally, I don't wanna meet on the 21st.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't want to meet on the 21st either, but I guess I hear Colleen's point that I think it really depends on the issue too. I don't think any work is going to get done between the 21st and our first meeting in January, so I don't know if it's helpful for us to vote on anything on the 21st of December anyway. You're not here, are you?
I wasn't planning on it.
Yeah, so
Anyone
So-
else? Matt?
don't.
I'm happy to keep it penciled in, but I
Okay.
would rather not meet then.
Yeah.
Well, it was put in there as a
Yep.
tentative date,
Right.
okay? So, I think what I'm hearing is that if there are things that are heavy enough that we need to make some decisions before and not wait till the 4th, then we'll utilize that agenda item for that purpose only. It won't be a full-on meeting and
Yep.
so on and so forth. And I'll just make sure that if we have to, we'll structure the agenda, but we'll know more after the 14th.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there, so it wasn't a surprise. All right, we don't have any meeting minutes tonight. We have no reason to actually go into executive session anymore, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night, everybody.